It's been another busy week of cruise news and developments, including some dramatic and unexpected fallout from the SeaDream COVID outbreak, cancellations that reveal more about the line's real 2021 plans, chances to get free cruises, new and amazing deals for 2021, and so much more. I'm Gary Bembridge, and this is another of my Tips for Travelers cruise updates, where I will unpick the biggest breaking cruise news and discuss, importantly, what it means for all of us as cruisers. First of all, the resumption of cruises out of the ports in the United States will not be as fast as some cruisers were hoping and expecting. The conditions put on the lines by the CDC to return to service are proving much more complicated and definitely more time consuming than many had expected, including the lines. Now, Carnival were the very first line to confirm this by cancelling all their sailings out of USA ports to at least the end of January 2021. They also announced that they will focus the resumption of cruises only on two ports initially. That's Miami and Port Canaveral, and then they will later start out of Galveston. So this has meant that they have already cancelled all sailings until the end of February from all their other ports. That's about 6 or 7 ports. However, Tampa, their sailings have been cancelled to the end of March. So you should absolutely expect similar announcements from other lines as they digest what it means to start sailing again. Now, on a positive note, we are seeing reports of cruise lines already starting to send ships back to USA waters to be able to get them through the CDC process, through all the different rules, and to be able to start sailing again. So Carnival have already confirmed that they are returning ships to USA waters. They've removed them all before. So Carnival Horizon is on its way to Miami, and Carnival Breeze will be the next ship back in the United States. Now, in a letter sent to employees, the Holland America president, Gus Antorcha, he has said, and I'm going to quote here, "Following in-depth discussions with the CDC, other government agencies, and medical and science authorities, we have decided to start moving 6 Holland America Line ships towards US waters over the next several weeks to begin completing the requirements for conditional sailing." That's great news. They're actually sending the Koningsdam, New Statendam, New Amsterdam, the Westerdam, the Zuiderdam, and the Noordam back to the US. At least 2 Disney ships are also about to sail from Europe back to US waters. And in fact, Disney Fantasy has already, at the time of recording this, left Southampton en route for Port Canaveral. So whilst resumption of cruising out of USA ports to the Caribbean is not likely to be as fast as many had hoped, there are, though, positive signs on progress being made. However, there is less good news for those seeking to travel further afield. Cruise lines that focus on more exotic and multi-country cruises have taken a pessimistic view about how soon they can start sailing again. We are seeing an increasing wave of cancellations to as far as the middle of 2021 being announced. This means more and more lines confirming they will not be cruising for over a year. So who has been cancelling, and what is the significance of who is cancelling for all of us as cruisers, and importantly for you? Well, Cunard, the iconic British cruise line, has cancelled the Queen Elizabeth to March, Queen Victoria to May, and Queen Mary to right the way through to April. Crystal Cruises has also similarly pushed back its voyages on its ocean-going fleet into March and April based on which ship is coming into service. The ultra-luxury Regent Seven Seas, now they are part of the Norwegian cruise group, they have followed these two, and they've also scrapped all departures through to April 2021. Meanwhile, some lines have cancelled even further into 2021. This includes Silversea, the ultra-luxury line which is part of the Royal Caribbean group, and they have cancelled as far as mid-June. That's right, June 2021. Although 5 ships will sail again in April and May, Silver Wind, Silver Whisper, and Silver Explorer will only resume in June, so that's the middle of next year. Their competition, Seabourn, has announced it will restart ship by ship between April and June as well. Meanwhile, Windstar Cruises says that while most ships will resume in March and April, Star Pride will not return until its July voyage to Northern Europe, so way into the middle of next year. So why is this happening, and what does it mean for us as cruisers? Well, first of all, these lines sail multi-country and exotic cruises, which will be much more challenging to resume with the complexity of moving people around the world to join these cruises, differing requirements to enter countries, timing and certainty of what ports will be open and which will be kind of willing to accept cruises, and all those many complicated hurdles. So if you are planning to do a multi-country or an exotic cruise, I strongly recommend looking at the latter half of 2021, or even better, 2022. Now, many cruises have already reached this conclusion, and all of those lines have spoken in recent days how 2022 is especially strong for bookings already. Secondly, the lines have all said there will be a staggered return of ships to deal with the complexity of restaffing, training, repositioning, preparing and restocking ships, and all the complications of starting sailing again. So for example, Norwegian Cruise Line CEO has said that it will not be until Q3 2021 until all their ships are back in service. So this is why we are no longer seeing as many kind of blanket cancellations by one set date by the lines. And we're starting to see, as I've already spoken about, start dates ship by ship within each line. So as you plan cruises ahead, do bear in mind different ships will start sailing before others. So watch out for those announcements as you start planning your future cruises. Now, thirdly, if you want to cruise sooner, it is worth noting that the lines are focusing on getting cruising restarted in the biggest cruise region. That's the United States. And that's before they deal with the other regions. Their focus is on getting Caribbean cruising open. Energy, time, money, and resources are really strongly focused on working through those very detailed, very stringent guidelines and steps that have been laid out by the CDC in their framework for conditional sailing, and it is pretty complex. Getting this sorted will enable the biggest lines, including Carnival, Royal Caribbean, Norwegian, MSC Cruises, Celebrity, Princess Disney, and Holland America, to take paying passengers, they really hope, in the first quarter of 2021. The lines have a lot to do. They hope, though, that they can bring back a few ships on short Caribbean trips initially focused on their private islands through the early months of 2021. So even if lines start sailing early in the year to the Caribbean, you cannot count on the itinerary you might have booked running as advertised, and that's certainly what I'm assuming is those ones in January, February, March just aren't going to happen as planned. This is especially true if the 2021 cruise you have booked or are looking at is longer than 7 nights. These are not allowed under the CDC framework until at least November. And as I suggested in my last update, almost all the major lines have taken those off sale already. They have not formally cancelled those cruises, but if you are booked on a cruise over 7 nights out of the USA, I strongly recommend you start looking at shifting that to a 7-night cruise alternative because it has more chance of going. Now, fourthly, it is clear that the next priority after the Caribbean will be on getting Europe and Alaska able to open and cruising for the season in those regions. Now, both those regions usually operate from kind of April, May time until September, October. Now, in Europe, this includes 4 key regions. So that's the Mediterranean, the Norwegian fjords, the British Isles, and the Baltics. German and Italian lines, of course, have already been sailing Italian, Greek, and Canary Island itineraries, although they're actually on pause at the moment due to European lockdowns. Clear in Europe is pushing hard to get the UK-based lines and those at home port in the UK sailing UK-based itineraries, which, as I reported in the last update, the UK government appears to be moving towards. So that's UK ports for UK residents. One of the steps the lines have to complete before the CDC will allow them to sail out of US ports is to run what they call simulated cruises. Now, these are designed to test both the new CDC protocols and also the ones that the lines themselves have developed and published. Royal Caribbean created a lot of excitement across the last week by launching a website for people to register for these free test cruises, certainly as they call them. They also launched a Facebook page. Now, at the time of recording, over 100,000 have signed up for interest, and there's about 40,000 on the Facebook group. Now, this is not a surprise because they're suggesting offering people a free cruise. What is interesting though is if you read the discussion on the Facebook page, it's really clear that a surprising amount of people have not understood the changes to cruising that is coming and will be in place to allow lines to sail again. So it's certainly worth joining the Facebook group to see the kind of discussion that's taking place and what people are and aren't expecting. The other lines have not said how they will recruit volunteers, nor actually has Royal Caribbean even said exactly how they will select those people. At the time of recording, they are, though, the only ones asking people at this stage to register, so keep out for the other cruise lines to follow. Now, in terms of timing, Norwegian Cruise Line CEO this past week suggested that these test cruises are unlikely to be ready to sail, certainly this year, and it was unlikely that any other lines would, because there's an enormous amount that the lines have to put in place, including building things like testing capability, bringing crew back, meeting the CDC guidelines for that. They have to get crew trained, they have to get the ships ready. So it's unlikely that these test cruises will run this year. If you want to know how to sign up for any of those, there are links in the notes of this. I wanted to update you on the SeaDream COVID outbreak on their first Caribbean cruise out of Barbados and the impact it has had. In the end, 9 people were confirmed as testing positive for COVID by SeaDream. This was a group of 5 traveling together, another couple that it seems they were pretty friendly with, and 2 crew members. One of the infected passengers was actually flown back to California on a medical evacuation flight. The remaining passengers, who all tested negative by the Barbados authorities, were then disembarked and returned home on commercial airlines. For example, UK guests returned to the UK on a British Airways flight. Now, this move actually surprised a lot of people, including some of the passengers themselves, as the CDC guidelines for ships sailing out of the USA would have required, first of all, a longer quarantining, and also would have required use of non-commercial transport to get passengers home after an outbreak on a ship. So that was one key difference. Guests reported that the Barbados authorities were behind this push for them to disembark, by the way, and leave. It wasn't SeaDream's decision. Now, there have been 2 really big impacts to date from this outbreak. First of all, SeaDream have cancelled the rest of their 2020 Caribbean sailings. Now, in a statement they said, and I'm going to quote this, SeaDream successfully operated more than 20 sailings during the pandemic without any cases, and further improvements were made to protocols before the Barbados season. The company will now spend time to evaluate and see if it is possible to operate and have a high degree of certainty of not getting COVID. Now, the SeaDream experience shows that despite various layers of testing and other controls, keeping COVID off ships cannot be guaranteed. However, it is also important to remember, I think, that a similar protocol, admittedly using a different test type, has actually meant that COVID-free ships have been sailing with many more guests in Europe throughout this past summer without any incident. Those ships have been carrying over 1,000 on each sailing in the case of Embassy Cruises and Costa versus the 50-odd that were on SeaDream. So certainly there is a real chance of having safe COVID sailings. Now, the second impact of the SeaDream incident has led to some US leaders, led by a guy called Richard Blumenthal from the Senate and Doris Matsu, who's a member of Congress, to lobby and write to the CDC to ask them to reinstate a blanket no-sail order instead of their framework to conditional sailing. They have required and requested a reply from the CDC by the 27th of November, and no reply at this stage. Now, whilst this does seem unlikely, the CDC still has enormous control over when cruise lines can actually start sailing, and they alone determine how fast the lines and ships will progress through each of the stages they have laid down. Now, personally, I suspect we will see things progress at a very slow and very measured pace rather than them reinstating the no-sail order, but certainly something to watch out for. A number of people have contacted me to ask what my view is on the celebrity cruises always included fares that will be offered for all celebrity cruise bookings made from November the 17th. They now include Wi-Fi, drinks and gratuities into the basic cruise fare. Although celebrity cruises have made quite a big noise about this, in reality this actually brings them in line with the deals that were their direct competition, Holland America and Princess Cruises, were already offering on their 2021 cruises. You'll find that you can get these items included in fares across those premium lines when booking cruises for next year. This is really good news, as it means that although fares are broadly the same as pre-pandemic levels, they are much better value than they were before the pandemic. Now, I've been saying for some time that 2021 fares will be more attractive to encourage cruises back, and this move to a more all-inclusive fare is very welcome in my view, and I think will be very appealing to a lot of cruisers. So what actually is being included in these new fares? Well, the Celebrity always included has classic drinks package, so you can get a range of beers, spirits, cocktails, liqueurs and wines by the glass, includes Wi-Fi for 2 devices, and then includes all the gratuities. They then offer different upgrades to different packages where you can get premium drinks, onboard credit to use like at the spa and excursions and so on. So as you look to book cruises for next year, definitely check out and compare line by line what these deals are. Holland America, Princess and Celebrity cruises are all ones I've taken advantage of, as they include many of those items that can really mount up and add to the cost of a cruise. So really welcome. Now, these are the biggest news stories breaking that I felt you really needed to know about at the moment, and what I think they mean for us as cruise lovers. I have loads more tips for travelers, episodes full of cruising advice and tips. So why not enjoy another one right now?